You step up to the tee, you make the same swing you have made your whole life, and the ball just dies out there, 30, 40 yards shorter than it used to fly. So you do the natural thing, you swing harder. And it gets worse. Here's what I finally learned. The distance you lost after 70 is not gone because you got weak. It is gone because you started fighting your own swing. And the men who hit it long into their 80s never fought it at all. They knew something we were taught to forget. A rhythm, a tempo, a way of moving that a one-legged golfer proved works more than 100 years ago. I am going to show you exactly what a teacher named Ernest Jones discovered back in 1916 after he lost his right leg in the war and still broke 80 standing on one foot, and it cost you nothing. No new driver, no lessons, no gadget, just you and the clubs already sitting in your garage. I remember the exact afternoon I gave up. It was a warm Tuesday in October, the 9th hole at my little Muni course, and a fellow who had to be pushing 80 stepped up ahead of me and flushed one past my best drive of the day. I stood there holding a driver that cost me more than my first car, feeling like a fool. That old man never even grunted. For years I did everything the modern way. I bought the big-headed drivers. I read the magazines that told me to build clubhead speed, to load up, to fire my hips, to turn my shoulders 90 degrees like some 30-year-old on the television. And every season the ball went shorter. Every season the round got harder on my body. My lower back would seize up by the 12th hole. My hands would ache that night. I told myself it was just age. That is the story we all get told, isn't it? You are 70 now. You cannot expect to hit it like you used to. Accept the shorter tees. Accept the decline. But that old man on the 9th hole did not accept anything, and he was older than me, so I started paying attention. I started watching the men in their late 70s and 80s who still played well, not the ones who muscled it, the ones who looked almost lazy, the ones whose swings looked slow, and whose balls came off the club with a sound the rest of us could not make. Here is the first thing I noticed, and it flipped everything I believed upside down. Every single one of them swung slower going back, slower than me, way slower. Their takeaway looked like they were moving in honey. That made no sense to me. If you want speed, you go fast, right? That is what a lifetime of advice had drilled into my head. Faster equals farther, except it does not, and there is hard proof. In 2004, a researcher named John Novosel did something nobody had bothered to do before. He took high-speed footage of the greatest ball strikers who ever lived, and he counted the frames. Frame by frame, he timed their swings, not their power, their timing. And he found something that stopped me cold when I first read it. The best swings on earth all shared one ratio. The backswing took almost exactly 3 times as long as the downswing, 3-to-1. The club head traveled back slow, and it came down in 1/3 of that time. He measured it in frames, 21 frames going back, 7 frames coming down, or 24 and 8. Always that same 3-to-1 relationship, no matter who the golfer was, no matter how big or small. Now here is why that matters for you and me. When you and I try to add distance, what do? We speed up the backswing. We snatch the club away fast because we are anxious, because we are trying hard. And the moment we do that, we wreck the ratio. We arrive at the top out of sequence, out of balance, and we have to force the downswing to catch up. That force is exactly what kills your distance. It tightens every muscle in your arms and shoulders, and tight muscle is a slow muscle. The old-timers swung slow going back so the club had time to load. Then they let it fall. They were not making speed. They were saving it, storing it, and releasing it at the one moment it counts, down at the bottom where the ball is. I want you to sit with that for a second, because it goes against everything the modern game sells us. The men who hit it the farthest into old age were not working harder than you. They were working far less. They just knew where to spend the little effort they had. But knowing the ratio is not the same as feeling it, and that is where I got stuck for the longest time. Because you cannot think your way through a golf swing, it happens in about 1.5 seconds. There is no time to calculate anything. So how did the old generation learn this feeling without high-speed cameras and frame counts? That is the question that sent me digging, and what I found was buried decades deep. Here is a fact almost nobody talks about anymore. For the first few hundred years of golf, nobody could swing hard even if they wanted to. It was physically impossible to force the club, because the shafts were made of hickory wood. Steel shafts were not even made legal in the United States until 1924. Before that, every club had a wooden shaft, and hickory has a particular quality. It is whippy, it bends and twists and flexes. If you lunged at the ball, if you snatched the club back and threw everything at it, that wooden shaft would bend and twist and spray the ball dead sideways. The only way to hit a hickory-shafted club well was to swing it smoothly, to let it flow. The wood itself would not allow anything else. It punished force and it rewarded rhythm. So an entire generation of golfers, the men who taught our fathers, grew up with equipment that physically trained tempo into them. They could not develop bad habits because the club would not let them. Smoothness was not a style choice. It was survival. Think about what that means. Harry Vardon, who won 6 British Opens, the man they named the grip after, learned to play with hickory. His swing was famous for being unhurried, almost effortless. Bobby Jones, the greatest amateur who ever lived, had a swing people described as syrup pouring from a jug, slow, smooth, endless. They did not have a choice. And because they had no choice, they built the most efficient swings the game has ever seen. Then steel came along, and steel could take a beating. You could lunge at a steel-shafted club, you could force it, you could swing out of your shoes, and it would mostly hold up. The equipment stopped correcting us. And that, right there, is the moment the knowledge started slipping away. Not because it stopped working, because the tools stopped teaching it. Each new generation of clubs let us get a little more violent, a little more forceful, a little further from the smooth rhythm that hickory demanded. By the time you and I came up, the whole game had changed its language. It was all power now, distance, speed, crush it. And the quiet, patient tempo of the old masters got labeled old-fashioned, outdated, something for the history books. But it was never outdated. It was the most correct thing in the entire game. It just did not sell new equipment. And I need to be honest with you about something, because this is the part that made me angry once I understood it. There is an enormous industry that depends on you believing your distance problem is a hardware problem. Every year there is a new driver. Faster, longer, 10 more yards they promise, $300, $400, $500. And every year millions of men our age hand over that money because we have been trained to believe that the fix is something we buy, not something we already know how to do. I bought them. I bought a lot of them. I have a closet full of last year's miracle drivers that added exactly nothing, because the problem was never the club. The problem was the swing I put on it. And no amount of titanium fixes a swing that has lost its rhythm. They will never tell you that the fix is free. They will never run an advertisement that says, put down the wallet and slow down your backswing. There is no money in that message. The money is in your fear that you are falling behind, that everyone else has the new thing, that your decline is just one purchase away from being solved. Meanwhile, the actual solution sat in the swing of every old man who learned the game the right way. Free, available, forgotten on purpose, because forgotten things do not compete with the new product on the shelf. And that is exactly why I sat down and wrote it out myself, in plain language, the way nobody in this business ever will. Everything I am handing you in this video about tempo and rhythm and how tension eats your distance, I took a great deal further on paper, with the drills laid out day by day for the swing you have right now, at 70, at 75, on your own carpet or your own garage entry, with no gym, no coach, and no new driver. 3 short books I wrote for men our age. Getting your 40 yards back off the tee, loosening the death grip that strangles your release, and ending the fat and thin shots off tight lies so your hands stop stinging. If you want them, scan the QR code right there on your screen, link in the description, pinned comment. That is the whole collection, and it goes further than any video can. Now, back to the man I promised you. because his story is the proof of everything I just said. Now here is where it gets personal, and here is the man I promised you I would tell you about. His name was Ernest Jones. He was born in England in 1887, and by his 20s he was a fine young professional golfer with a bright future in front of him. Then came the First World War. Jones went to fight, and in 1916, in the trenches, a grenade took his right leg off below the knee. Think about what that means for a golfer. The right leg, for a right-handed player, is the leg you push off. It is the foundation of everything we are taught about power. Drive off the right side. Load into the right leg. That is where the force is supposed to come from, and Ernest Jones had lost it. Any reasonable person would have said his golf was finished. He should never have broken 100 again. But listen to what actually happened, because this is real and it is documented. Within months of losing his leg, before he even had a proper prosthetic, Ernest Jones went out on one leg, balanced on crutches and his good foot, and he shot an 83. 83 on one leg, and it got better. Standing on that single leg, he later went around in 72, even par golf, on one leg. Now sit with that. How is that even possible? A man with no right leg, no ability to drive or push or force anything, shooting the kind of scores that most two-legged golfers our age would give anything to shoot. There is only one explanation. Everything we were told about where distance comes from is wrong. It does not come from muscling the ground with your legs. It does not come from brute force. Ernest Jones proved that with his own body, because he had nothing to force with. All he had left was the swing itself, the pure pendulum motion of the clubhead. And when the force was stripped away, when the strength was taken from him, what remained was the only thing that ever actually mattered. Rhythm, tempo, the clubhead swinging. Ernest Jones understood in that moment something it takes most of us a lifetime to miss. He wrote that you do not hit the ball. You swing the clubhead, and the ball simply gets in the way. He taught that the whole swing should feel like a weight on the end of a string, moving back and through in one unbroken motion. He moved to America and became the most sought-after teacher in the country. He taught out of a studio in New York City, up above the streets, and he taught thousands of people the thing his lost leg had forced him to learn. And his most famous demonstration, the one I want you to remember, was almost impossibly simple. He would take a small pocket knife or a weight and tie it to the end of a handkerchief or a length of string. Then he would swing it, back and through, smooth. And he would show his students how, if you jerked it or forced it, the string went slack and the weight collapsed and the whole thing fell apart. But if you swung it smoothly, in rhythm, the weight stayed out at the end of the string the whole time, held there by the motion itself. Effortless, continuous, alive. That, he said, is your golf swing. That weight on the string is your clubhead. And the moment you try to force it, the moment you try to add muscle, the string goes slack and everything falls apart. I have to tell you, when I first read about that little pocket knife on a handkerchief, something in me went quiet, because I understood finally why that 80-year-old man had flown his ball past mine on the 9th hole. He was swinging the weight on the string. I was jerking it and forcing it and wondering why the ball would not go. Now, I know some of you are listening to all of this and thinking, that is fine for a professional, or for somebody with a nice club membership and a coach and all day to practice. I am on my own out here. I play a cheap public course, or I just knock balls at the range once a week. I do not have money for lessons or fancy training aids. This is not for me. Stay with me right now, because this next part is the part I built especially for you. This is the part that costs nothing and needs nobody's help and no special place to do it. Ernest Jones did not have training aids either. He had a pocket knife and a handkerchief. And I am going to give you his exact method, the one you can do tonight, alone, standing in your kitchen or your hallway, on any budget, in any home. You do not even need a golf club to start. Take anything with a little weight to it, a key on a lanyard, a small padlock on a shoelace. Jones used a penknife on a handkerchief, so use whatever you have in a drawer right now. Tie your little weight to the end of the string. Hold the top of the string between your thumb and finger. Let the weight hang down. Now swing it, gently, back and forth in front of you, like the pendulum on an old grandfather clock. Back and through. Do not throw it. Do not snap it. Just let it swing. Feel how, when you keep the motion smooth, the weight stays out at the bottom of its arc and pulls the string tight. Feel how there is a natural rhythm to it, a tempo it wants to swing at, and if you try to speed it up or force it, it wobbles and collapses. That feeling, that exact feeling of the weight swinging itself, is the feeling you are going to put into your golf swing. That is the whole secret. Your arms and the club are the string. The club head is the weight. You are not throwing it. You are swinging it and letting it stay out at the end. You can do this for 5 minutes a night in front of the television. It costs you nothing. It asks nothing of your back or your knees. And it retrains the one thing that has been robbing you of distance, which is the urge to force. But I promised you something more than a drill. I promised you the finale. The specific method from the specific source that ties all of this together and that you can take to the course this weekend. And that is where we go now, because knowing the feeling in your hand with a string is one thing. Knowing the exact tempo to swing at is another. And this is the piece that almost nobody has ever heard. Here is where the old wisdom and the modern proof meet, and where I finally cracked it for myself. Remember that 3-to-1 ratio John Novosel measured? Backswing 3 times as long as the downswing? For years I could not turn that number into a feeling. A ratio is a math fact. It is not something you can feel while you swing, until I found the old counting method. And this is the buried treasure, the thing I want you to carry out of here. The old teachers, the ones who came up through the hickory years and passed their knowledge quietly to a few students, they did not talk about ratios. They gave their pupils a rhythm to say inside their own head. A little 3-beat count, like a waltz, because a waltz is 3 beats, and a golf swing, it turns out, is a waltz. Here is how you do it. As you take the club back slow and smooth, you count to yourself 1, 2, 3, 3 full beats to reach the top, slow, unhurried, like Bobby Jones and his syrup. And then the whole downswing, from the top all the way through the ball, happens on a single beat. 1, 1, 2, 3, back, 1, through. That is the 3-to-1 ratio, turned into something a human being can actually feel. You are not counting frames on a camera. You are humming a little waltz, and your body naturally builds the exact tempo that the greatest ball strikers on earth all shared. Some of the old boys did not even count numbers. They hummed a tune, a slow, familiar 3-beat song, the kind you might have danced to 70 years ago. They would hum the first bar going back and let the club fall on the downbeat. Same thing, same waltz, same 3-to-1. Now here is why this is the finale. Why this is the thing that changes your next round, and not just this evening in front of the television. When you combine the weight on a string feeling with the 3-beat count, something remarkable happens. You stop trying to hit the ball. You start swinging the club head to a rhythm. And because you are no longer forcing anything, your muscles stay loose, and loose muscles move fast. The distance comes back not because you added effort, but because you finally stopped strangling the effort you already had. The club head, swinging free on that 3-beat waltz, moves faster at the bottom than it ever did when you were trying to kill it. That is not my opinion. That is the frame-by-frame truth Novosel measured, and it is the exact thing Ernest Jones felt on one leg in 1916. Here is how you take it to the course this weekend. On the range first, not the first tee. Start with half swings, humming your 3 count. 1, 2, 3 back and 1 through. Do not watch the ball. Do not care where it goes. Just feel the waltz. Feel the weight swinging on the string. Then slowly, let the swing get bigger while the tempo stays exactly the same. This is the part everybody gets wrong. When your swing gets longer, do not let it get faster. A full swing takes the same 3 beats back as a half swing. It just covers more ground in those 3 beats. The tempo never changes. Sam Snead's tempo at 70 was the same as his tempo at 30. The swing got a touch shorter with age. The rhythm never did. And that is why Snead, at 67 years old, shot his age in a professional tournament. 67 years old. And he went around in 67 strokes, and then the next day he shot 66. A man in his late 60s beating men a third his age, not with power. With that same slow, unhurried, honey-smooth tempo he learned as a barefoot boy swinging at rocks in the Virginia hills. That is the whole thing. That is the secret the hickory era baked into our grandfathers, that Ernest Jones proved on one leg, that John Novosel measured with a high-speed camera, and that a handful of quiet old teachers kept alive by handing their students a 3-beat count and a weight on a string. It was never lost because it stopped working. It was lost because it could not be sold, because a rhythm inside your own head does not come in a box with a price tag, and there is no company on earth that profits from you standing on the tee, humming a slow waltz, swinging a club that is already yours. So let me tell you what I want you to feel when you walk off the course next weekend. Not that you found a new trick, that you took back something that belonged to you all along, something your father's generation knew in their hands and had quietly taken away from them, one shiny new product at a time. You are the kind of person who is always a little suspicious of the easy promise and the expensive fix. You trusted your own common sense before the marketing men taught us to doubt it. That instinct was right. It was right the whole time. The men who hit it long into their 80s were not stronger than you. They just never forgot how to swing instead of hit. Now, I want to hear from you, and I mean this directly, because I know most of you watch these and never say a word. Leave me a comment and tell me this. When you go out and try the 3-beat count, the 1, 2, 3 back and 1 through, tell me what happens to your very first drive. Did the ball come off different? Did it feel easier? I read these, and I want to know. And tell me where in the world you are watching from, because it always amazes me how far these old truths travel. If this reached you, if it made you see your own swing a little differently, then you belong with the rest of us who are quietly digging up the things our parents and grandparents knew and putting them back to work. That is what we do here. We recover what was taken and we hand it back, plain and free. Because there is one more piece to this I have not told you yet. There is an old way the hickory players used to set their hands on the club, a grip pressure so light it would frighten you, and it is the missing half of why their swings looked so effortless. I am going to show you exactly how it works next time. Stay with me, and you will never squeeze the life out of another swing again. Before you go, let me tell you where this leads. Inside the Wiser Living Circle, I walk you through the full drill, swing by swing. If something doesn't click, you can ask me directly, and I answer you myself, no robots. And you won't be doing it alone. You'll belong here with folks just like you. Just point your phone's camera at the code on your screen, and you can cancel anytime, no risk at all. Now, if you take just one thing away, let it be this. There's a reason swinging harder actually costs you distance after 70, and the next video explains it simply. It's starting right here, so stay with me.